quick review of my first ever Midori notebook. I keep a diary. I kept a diary off and on as a child, and in college I started again around 2015, and I've basically kept a diary continuously ever since. I've used all kinds of books for my diary. To talk about all the different methods would take 7 or 8 hours of talking maybe or something. But recently I've been using notebooks in this size. This Profolio explains it, 5.8 by 8.3, A5. I stumbled on this size because a friend recommended the Oasis notebook, and then I started keeping my diary there. I did that for 2 volumes. Then at Christmas, I was given a Midori notebook of roughly the same dimensions, and I was very drawn to it because it was the opposite color, white. But in terms of binding, it was similar enough to be comfortable. Midori notebooks come wrapped in this wax paper dust jacket, which I think is very cool. Having taken the wax paper off of the new white notebook, I thought, well, I don't want to throw it away, so I thought I would dust jacket a completed notebook with it, and that's why this particular notebook looks kind of gray. If anyone who uses Midori notebooks can share some cool uses they've had for the wax paper that comes with it, please let us know. It's very hot, and I have been out skateboarding today, so I'm gonna drink some of this ice water. This table is so dusty, it doesn't really merit the use of a coaster, but I'm gonna use this tile as a coaster. When I got the Midori notebook, my first impression was that it was kind of stylish because it doesn't have anything covering over this binding stuff. I don't know what you call this tape, this clothy tape, this woven tape that goes all up and down the spine of the book. But this is the ribbon that goes into the book, and you can see it's just exposed there. They must use a very strong glue to attach it there up at the top. I had a dual impression. One was that it was very fancy, and the other was that it was very plain. This cover stock is quite thick. This was a great advantage. I think that it's nice to have cover stock that you can use almost as a kind of clipboard while you're writing, where anytime you open up this book, it feels like you're writing nicely on a nice little table, your own personal school desk or something. Another thing I noticed is that the Midori was thicker than the Oasis, so it was going to last a little while longer. The packaging for the Midori says this has, so many pages. It has like 96 sheets, 192 pages or something for 6 months of diary use. And as you can see, it lasted me just a little longer than that. So they did kind of know whereof they spoke. In this Oasis notebook here, you can see at the top they have this date kind of thing at the very top, this header. This kind of got a little bit, I got tired of that header always being at the top of the page for the Oasis. So I was very grateful with that the Midori did not have that. The paper in the Midori was this dot grid. I never use a dot grid. I think the only other time I used a dot grid was in a Fabriano book that I was given by my mom, who also gave me this notebook. And I thought it was really nice. I couldn't really find too many uses for the dot grid, but it's so unobtrusive that it feels like kind of not a very costly adornment. Actually, there were times where it helped me make a straighter line while kind of doing a box to kind of put in a little detail on a page. Beginning this notebook on January 1st was a pleasure because it's nice to have a book take place only in 1 year. I guess the OCD in me kind of likes that containment within the borders of a year. I relished the book because I don't have another Midori of the same size. I have these 2 smaller Midoris. My mom also got me, applause for my mom, she's the best ever, but she also got me this grid notebook Midori in a smaller size, which I like a lot. It almost makes me want to practice my Chinese characters in it. And then very recently, my dear friend, whose pens you can see an overview of in the Leafy Concern video, an overview of one's pens, gave me this very tiny one that he found in a stationery shop in Portland. So though the notebook is unique among my notebook stash in terms of size and number of pages and brand, I still did feel like I could stretch out in this notebook simply because it had oh so many pages in it. For the ephemera part in the back, I put in a small envelope and put this on the flap, inflammation of we can offer more and more. The significance of this poem being that the desire to offer more and more, to give your shoppers more things to choose from, it becomes oddly inflamed in the case of someone who wants to keep a large journal and wants to keep little ephemera in this little envelope in the back. On the front of the book, after filling it, I put on a Leuchtturm 1917 kind of label. You know, those Leuchtturm books come with a sticker sheet with lots of different labels, and those are quite useful. I'll throw them onto things now and again, although now that I have good glue sticks, specifically I use the Uhu sticks, I can stick anything that I've written on onto anything in the world, so these stickers aren't necessarily, they're not needed, they are not of necessity, but yeah, I used one on the front here. But before wasting all of your time today, I want to talk to you about the part of this notebook that I enjoyed the most. So, you will see that in an unused Midori notebook, all these pages out here on the end are very straight. They're all very aligned with one another. It's because the little signatures or whatever that the pages are in are not unseated from their glue there. They're not kind of jostled around. Now I noticed while actually using the book that as I progressed through it, this spine would become kind of weathered in a way that would jut out the edges of the pages a little bit so that those little bundles would stick out in a way that created this like deckled edge of the places in the notebook where you had already been. And I found this immensely satisfying. And I find it very satisfying that now that the notebook is all filled up, it's all textured on both sides like that. Really, in terms of paper, in my opinion, you cannot do better than this notebook. I already mentioned that the cover stock is the perfect thickness for what I like, but also the paper itself has a thickness that just makes it feel like you can use any pen in the world. And that's valuable, even though I do often simply use ballpoint pens. Sometimes I was using Muji gel pens. Other times I would just use, your ballpoint, your your Bic. No matter what I use, the pens seem to work. I put a lot of front matter in these notebooks. I like how if you just find a quote you like and you put it at the front, it makes your notebook seem kind of like a book, like an actual book, because it makes it seem like it has an epigraph that was carefully chosen. And the only good one that I have at the front of this book is "The secret to boring people is in telling them everything," which is a Tolstoy quote. I think I heard that while listening to "A Swim in the Pond in the Rain" by George Saunders. I'd also like to talk about this patina you see that the paper has. This may not be to everyone's taste, but of course it's very to my taste. It's something that I appreciate quite a lot. This the way the paper ages as you use it, and it kind of picks up a little bit of the dirt and little bits of pencil that are in your backpack when you throw the book in your backpack. There is the majority of the patina is actually on the back of the book, which makes sense because that was kind of what was always touching the ground. And the patina kind of extends, I think, onto the cloth tape on the edge of the book as well, although just barely. The little strings that make up this weave sort of, they're not tamped down as perfectly as they were when this duct tape was first taken out of its plastic wrap when I first opened the notebook. Before I proceed, if you use these notebooks and you have a place where you like to buy them, let me know where you do buy them. I think that to give me this gift, my mom ordered this thing offline and then shipped it to me here. And that's a bit much. I think I saw them at the Barnes & Noble in Knoxville one time, but I don't really know exactly where these are sold. If you have a good retailer online where you like to get things like these, please do let me know. If you don't, that's fine. Of course, this kind of notebook may be totally new to you. Anyway, moving on. Since I don't have another one of those Midori notebooks and I have to keep writing in my diary, I've decided to move on to this other notebook, also a gift from my mom. This Leuchtturm 1917 notebook in kind of a brown, and I will say it, kind of a diarrhea brown, but it is a nice brown. I've never had a notebook, a brown notebook. I don't think I've ever used a brown notebook. Somehow it's always like blacks and grays. Maybe brown and tan notebooks are going to become the rage here. When I saw this in its plastic wrap, I said I've never seen a Leuchtturm like this before, and I'd never had one like this where the cover is soft, it's flexible, and then there's something about the pebbliness of the cover. It's sort of like how the Jot books used to be, yet it's somehow different. It feels somehow soft and feathery to me, even though it may just feel smooth and leathery to me maybe at times when my imagination isn't so awakened. It's the same kind of internals, I think, as the hardcover Leuchtturm that I use for poem, note taking and stuff like that. What you doing, bud? It has that, you can see it has that giant pocket with the like accordioning gore. It has the two ribbons, even though this has fewer pages than the hardcover thing I have. It has the totally massive 2-page blank contents spread, just in case you want to put in contents or things. I decided not to actually write any diary over this because I may want to go back and use this. I've used it before with notebooks where I was writing silly poems, and I liked juxtaposing the silly poems with the kind of the pomp and circumstance of putting down page numbers and titles for silly things in the front. You can see that ink is bleeding through. This is not a notebook of perfect paper like I think the Midori notebook is. It's a bit thinner. However, I have grown to like the feeling of seeing the ink bleeding through slightly, not in a way that harms legibility, because it makes me feel like in my inking, I am doing such an efficient job that I am inking up the paper almost past its capacity to hold the ink. It's something about it's some sort of subconscious thing that happens. I think in my brain gives me a little bit of pleasure when I feel like I'm writing kind of to the max that the page can allow. The maximum ink that the page can allow. Anyway, that was weird. But yeah, this is what I'm working with now. So I'm excited to be using that. I'm excited to find uses for these two things. I think that this little guy that I was given could be a good pocket notebook. It's kind of thick, but more on that later. As for now, I will press on with my Leuchtturm, and I will strongly recommend this Midori notebook, especially for people who are used to these Oasis notebooks. Anyone who likes a notebook that lays flat, is stitched like this, and anyone who works in the A5 size, I can highly recommend it. Also think they do a good job with the dot grid, etc. And keep in mind that lovely thing that I discovered about how the little bundles kind of come out just a little bit as you work through the notebook. Like at the start, the ones I had used were the ones that were sticking out and the rest was perfectly flat. I found that to be kind of magical, but then again, I am very strange. So thanks for watching this review of this Midori notebook, the first I've ever used.